All right, PFL playoffs, week 2, Friday, August 16th in Hollywood, Florida. Coming up this Friday. Definitely a better card than last week's. This one's actually got some decent main card fights and some good, well-respected names in MMA. They may not be the highlights of the divisions yet or ever, but last week's card was pretty lackluster. This one, solid for a PFL fight card. Is it the greatest of all time? No, but let's get into it. Starting with Impa Kasanganay and Josh Silveira, light heavyweight semifinal matchup. Impa Kasanganay, the guy who was brutally knocked out by Joaquin Buckley in the UFC a few years ago. Josh Silveira, really making his name for himself in the PFL, kind of came out of nowhere. Son of Conan Silveira, the coach out of ATT. I like this matchup. I think it's going to be fun. They both kind of come to bang. They're both well-rounded. They both mix it up. I think Impa's the more athletic guy. Josh Silveira is definitely the bigger, stronger guy, I would say. Impa's moving up from middleweight. He's really a middleweight. But he's able to not cut as much weight at light heavyweight, stay in better, condition overall. He's kind of making a name for himself. Is he really that great, or is the light heavyweight division in the PFL not all that great? That's kind of what I would lean towards, because Rob Wilkinson, as we see below him, is one of those guys who Izzy beat brutally on the come-up through the UFC. Israel Adesanya, that is. I think Impa's going to get it done. I think he's the more athletic. I'd argue he has heavier hands, because Josh is kind of he's not really super fat, but he's one of those kind of, maybe was a fat kid when he grew up, and that's kind of the lack of power that he kind of suffers from. But he's fun to watch. He's a tough guy. He's got a great chin. And look forward to that one. I'm going to take Impa Kasanganay in that one. On to the next. Rob Wilkinson, Dovletsan Yagshimuradov. Dovletsan, good striker, mixes it up well. Rob Wilkinson, heavy hands, coming off the whole steroid thing. Is he still on steroids? Probably is. I don't know. PFL, Bellator, I don't know what they're doing in terms of testing. That one, same kind of thing. I just hope that it's two thudders coming at each other. And there's not much more to say on that one. I liked the way that Yagshimuradov looked on the come-up through Bellator in that Grand Prix they had when he fought Rumble. He looked decent. I think Rob Wilkinson gets it done. Younger, faster, more athletic guy. I think he's going to get to Yagshimuradov before Yagshimuradov can get to him, but who knows? It's the PFL. They've both taken some damage. They're coming up through these fights in quick succession. You never know, really. It's hard to pick. Godzi Rabatamov versus Michael Dufort. I like what Michael Dufort has been doing. He's definitely making a name for himself this season, putting on some impressive performances, looking good as he does it. Rabatamov, I think, is the better fighter overall. I predict that he's going to win, but honestly, be on the lookout for Michael to get either some kind of finish. Maybe he gets a knockout, kind of clips him last minute, kind of just going for it. He seems like a guy who's willing to go for it. And Rabatamov is not one of those fighters who has proven that he's not really willing to tough it out and go for it. He's a great fighter, don't get me wrong, but Michael Dufort, he's a guy who looks like he's willing to put it all on the line to get something done. And I trust that, and I believe that, and I respect that over a lot of what these wrestler grappler types come into the MMA to do. So I'm going to take Rabatamov, but I hope Michael Dufort can pull something out of his ass and get something done. I'll put it that way. On to the next. Brent Primus, Clay Collard. This one's going to be fun. Grappler versus striker. Brent decided to strike the entire last fight he had and barely eked out a win. That was close, man. And I really hope he doesn't try to do that against Clay Collard. I would say he's pretty freaking stupid if he does that, because his grappling is really, really good. He fought a guy, I believe he was Russian, a couple fights ago in Bellator, where he was just throwing up submission after submission after submission. He wasn't doing anything but throwing up submissions from the bottom, and he arguably won the fight. Like, this guy's got the ability to do that. Yes, he's getting older, but he fights with typically, not based on his last fight, but usually this guy fights with some actual intelligence. He's dangerous off his back, throws up submissions like a wild man. I like that. I like to see that. That's mixing it up. That's the mixed martial arts, the mixing of the martial arts that we want to see. And Clay Collard is a come-forward boxer type who puts that jab right in your face, and he's always fun to watch. Do his fights get a little slow and stagnant sometimes? Does he get a little old with how much he comes with the same game plan? Yes, but he always kind of fights. He's always coming for a fight, always puts it on. And I think Brent Primus is going to give him a challenge because it's really a grappler versus striker matchup. And I think Brent can get it done if he can get a hold of Clay, but can Clay keep him at range and keep him backed up with his jab, keep him backed up with some uppercuts when Brent tries to shoot in on him? I'm interested to see what Brent does to shoot in on him. If it goes to the ground, I think Brent wins. If it stays on the feet, Clay wins. Easy said and done. I'm going to go out on a limb, Hail Mary shot here. I think Brent, if he gets him down one time, I think he can get to him. So I'm going to take Brent for fun, but I'm just looking forward to that fight because I think it's going to be a scrap. Tune in for that one. This main card is pretty solid. Biagio Ali Walsh, lightweight. I think this is a professional fight this time, maybe, versus Brian Stapleton. I don't really know who that is. I haven't done the research for this because I don't trust the PFL yet to put on great events. I don't want to put the time and the effort into researching a lot of these guys that I've never heard of because the product they're putting out just isn't impressive enough for me to really get into it. I like this main card. I think it's going to be a fun main card, one of the few. But it could also turn out to be a dud just because they can't throw elbows or do anything like that. And the rule set's just wacky and weird. And man, these guys are just trying to survive and get to $1 million. And that really hinders them, I think, sometimes. And, yeah, look for this main card. I definitely tune in. If you're not going to tune in at 9 p.m., check it out maybe 9:30, 9:45. Skip the Ali Walsh fight if you want. But he's an exciting fighter on the come up. They're using his name to promote the business. It is what it is. Let's look at the prelims here. Antonio Carlos Jr., Shoeface, taking on Carl Albrechtsen, a guy who's fought the likes of Nemkov and Yuri Prochazka in Rizin. I think that's going to be a fun light heavyweight fight. Two guys that really come to fight. Shoeface, more of the, jiu-jitsu savant, and Albrechtsen kind of mixes it up. Good striker on the feet, fast. Antonio Carlos, kind of just tough striker. That'll be a fun one. I'm not going to pick these. They're the prelims. I don't really care. Danny Sabatello, the wrestling. Colby Covington, loudmouth, smother you with grappling type versus Lazaro Dayron. Don't really know much about him, to be honest with you. But I knew about Elvin Espinoza and Mads Burnell. I think that's going to be a fun fight. Mads Burnell doesn't have a super interesting fight style, but he's definitely a well-rounded, good, solid mixed martial artist versus Elvin Espinoza, who just comes down the pipe like a marauder. It's going to be a good, interesting matchup. It's going to be a fun mix of like traditional, solid fighter in Mads Burnell versus a tough finisher, come heavy guy with Espinoza. The rest of these guys, I don't really know all that well. I've heard their names, yes. They might be interesting fights, but again, the rule system where there's no elbows just leads me to just be a little hesitant with the prelims. So if you're looking for some fun fights, probably skip the women's fight if I'm being honest, just because they can't throw elbows and they're not as aggressive in the PFL. It might be okay. I might be wrong, but does it really matter in the grand scheme of the PFL? Not really. The Jordan Oliver Akio fight and the Thak Jian and the Chris Brown fight, that might be good just for fun if you're just hanging around the house getting your dinner ready, whatever at the time. But if you want to tune in from the Mads Burnell fight up to the Sabatello fight, if you just want to see some fun active wrestling, that's Danny Sabatello in a nutshell. Carlos Albrechtsen probably going to put on a decent fight and then fight from there on up. So if you want to tune in around like 7 o'clock, 7:30, perfect. This one's a fun card. I think I'll tune in. PFL fights aren't always great, but yeah, look forward to this one. I think it'll be good. Check it out. Give them a chance. This is one of those that could end up being good just based on the matchups and who's fighting on the card. light heavyweight semifinals and the lightweight semifinals. So the 205 semifinals and the 155 semifinals this Friday, August 16th, 9 p.m. for the main card. Tune in about 7:30 for the prelims to get some decent action, some good MMA fights, get some names out there, get some views for them. Let's see what they can do. You know, if we tune in and watch the good ones, they'll know what to put together, and that's what I want to see. I want to see some competition for the UFC, and I don't know if the PFL is going to provide it, but who knows? And this is the card that can kind of rival what the UFC's got going on. I know they've got a pay-per-view, but this is definitely a better card, more interesting than the Tybura Spivak fight that we've had this past week. So who knows? Let's see if the PFL can challenge them. PFL playoffs, light heavyweights, lightweights, this Friday. I'll see you then.